what's Kobe's overall legacy in your eyes?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, he is undoubtedly one of the greatest players in the history of basketball, and we could start arguing his place on that list. And 24 hours ago, that would have felt like a very interesting argument to have. And obviously, how irrelevant does that feel right now? But I think I would answer your question about his legacy by dovetailing on something I just heard Max saying right before your last break, which is I have probably asked over the last 30 years the question, what do you think your legacy is, to more athletes than I could begin to count. And many of them say, I don't really care. Kobe is one of the only ones who ever said that to me that I actually believe. And the reason I believe that, in the last interview I did with him, which was last March here in New York City at the NBA store, when I asked him where he feels his place belongs amongst the all-time greats, he said, I really don't care. And I think part of the reason for that, as Max, you were just saying, is that I think he was happier in his life right now than he ever was as a player. I can't explain exactly why. I didn't know him well enough. I would defer to Stephen A. and Max, as you knew him, and Jalen and others who knew him far better than I did. But I certainly sensed that when he was playing, he was a person, perhaps if only because his determination and his competitiveness were so overwhelming that it's almost impossible to feel relaxed and happy when you are that way. I can't psychoanalyze it. But what I will say is he seemed extraordinarily happy, at peace, and very much looking forward to the next chapter. And I heard you were talking a little bit here, and we did this morning, about all the things he had going on in his life and the next mountain that he was going to climb. And I think he was actually as enthusiastic about that as he had been about the first. And that's very, very rare for an athlete of his stature. So I think his legacy goes well beyond basketball. And the thing that makes me saddest today, as we have talked about it, is that last part. First and foremost for his family, of course, and everyone else affected by this. But that I think he had so much left to do that he was so excited about that
whole second act
he won't be able to do now.
Laura, one thing, and I was excited that you were coming on this morning. Excited might not be the right word, but being the same age, do you think it's fair to say that he was our generation's Michael Jordan?
Absolutely, and I think that's the best way to say it. And a lot of people who are huge Jordan fans say, well, what are you talking about? But that's what Kobe is to our age group. And I think one of the reasons why is that, yes, what he did on the basketball court is remarkable, and it holds its place in history. But what he brought to the table from the Mamba mentality standpoint, this thought of you can be exceptionally talented, but also marry that with incredible hard work, and that never being satisfied would be something that you could model your life after. And I think that spans so many different venues in life. And I know that, for me, that's always who I looked at from a basketball standpoint, is Kobe and what he brings to the table. And so I absolutely think that he is the Michael Jordan of our generation.
It's interesting we're talking Jordan, because the thing about Kobe, I think, by the way, Mike, the reason he was happier was strange in Act Two is because when you're the most talented guy and in the gym, and you always act like you're the least talented guy, you work like you're the least talented guy, whether you win 3 or 5 or 7 championships, you can be satisfied. You've left it all out on the court. There are no regrets that way. But I want to talk about what was different about Kobe, his level of competitiveness. In the previous generation from you, if you consider Stephen A. or me or Mike a generation older than the two of you, it's not quite, but in sports terms, be like Mike. Planet Earth wanted to be like Mike. But no one actually had the nerve to try like Kobe. LeBron did something different. He's Mike meets Magic. You know, there were some bigs like Shaq who were, but who would dare? The greatest athlete in the history of sports, Michael Jordan, the most talented, the hardest worker, the most competitive, the most successful. Who would dare try to match that? Not as something new. 6'6" shooting guard. Studied his mannerisms clearly, as we all did, right? His moves, the way he dressed, everyone. Kobe didn't say, no, watch this. I'm going to do, in chess, it's called an asymmetrical strategy. Someone opens one way. If you counter with the same move, since they have the initiative, you're always behind. So there's something called an asymmetrical strategy. They open one way, and you put pressure in another way. So you don't have to face them head on. Kobe said, no, there's nothing going to be asymmetrical about my strategy. I'm going to do Mike better than Mike. And he almost got there. Like, it's the most insanely competitive, no smoke and mirrors, I believe in myself that we saw in that generation. And the fact that he would be the one to dare to do it and then basically do it is a testament to the kind of belief he had in himself. And I think why he could be satisfied with himself in his second act.
The conversations that Kobe and I have had over the years, I would submit to all of you that the biggest reason why he was so happy now, even more so than in his playing days, is because he had more control over his own happiness. You know, when I was hosting, quite frankly, that was on ESPN2 from like 2005 to 2007, people were looking at me and they were talking about my interviewing skills and, you know, what I had the potential to be one day. And they looked at somebody like Oprah. That could be you in years to come. Kobe came up to me and said, and no disrespect to Oprah whatsoever, he was like, the hell with Oprah, Harpo. It's not about being in front of the camera. It's about owning it. It's about owning your own product. It's about being in control of your own destiny. He never felt that way until the twilight years of his career. He comes into the league straight out of high school. He's got to prove. He's one of the early ones that departed from high school and come straight to the pros. Okay, after Kevin Garnett and those boys, okay, fine. So he's got something to prove. He's an all-star before he's even a starter. So he has to prove he's a starter. He becomes a star, but you haven't won a championship. You win a championship, but you did it with Shaq. Then ultimately you do it without Shaq. Can you carry your own team